everybody, welcome back to Taji's World of Books and welcome to another book series recommendation video. Hey you guys, so welcome back. So today I wanted to talk to you about a author that I think I got introduced to this author during the Audible beginning of the year, end of the year, whatever sale, and a lot of her books were on sale, and so I just went ahead and purchased a gang of her books, and I was like, I hadn't even read anything by her, and so after I did that, I sort of was like, Taji, was that such a good idea? Because you don't even know if you're going to like this author. So it turns out that I actually do like her writing style. There's only one duet that's in this series, and I'll explain in a minute, that I absolutely couldn't stand, and you're going to see and hear why in a minute. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Okay, so the author I want to talk to you about is Corinne Michaels. I have several of her series, so you're going to be hearing of her over the next couple of weeks. You're going to be hearing me read more of her series, but the first sort of series that I want to dive into is the Salvation series. And the Salvation series is made up of 3 duets, 1 standalone, and 1 standalone novella. Now, what I like about this series is that it has all the elements that I love, which is a close group of friends who couple off. And we see, so it's like, you know, it's usually like the heroine in the first book, and she's got a series of girlfriends, and all of her girlfriends then get connected with other sort of partners or maybe his friends later on down the line. You see this a lot in sports romances and hockey romances. So we get to see those characters multiple times throughout the series, and we have cameos, and so everything is really interwoven. And so this series definitely is meant to be read in order. Although she says that you don't have to read the duets in order, you absolutely do, because if you read some of the later duets before the first ones, then you will have been spoiled for those earlier ones. But listen, you could do whatever you want to do. This is your world. You're the queendom, you're the kingdom, whatever in your world. So you do you. But for me, I am a purist and I like to read things in order. So I read them all in order. So the first duet that I want to talk about. Oh, so let me go back. So it has elements that I really love. So it's like found family, close-knit friends, happy ever after. We get to see the couples later. So we see them 10 years out, 15 years out, and I like to see how everybody sort of evolves and develops and what comes of that. And then I like to see strong arcs, strong developments. So that means usually in the beginning, I probably don't like the characters all that much because I want to see them grow. And then as they grow and have growth, then where they end up is where I love them and where I love to see them. And especially because then we see, you know, cameos of them later on throughout the series. I love them even more because we see even more growth and development that happens with each of the couples. So the first is the Belonging duet, and it's made up of Beloved and Beholden. And let me say that this first starts off, it doesn't start off as a military romance or a military series, but it ultimately becomes a military romance. And that is because the main character hero in this book is Jackson Cole, I believe is his name. Yeah, Jackson Cole. And Jackson Cole owns a makeup company, strange, like a cosmetic company, but he also owns a military contracting defense company. And that military contracting defense company, you soon learn that he got that company after he left the military, and sort of they were like Navy SEALs, and they wanted to stay engaged, and so they went into contracting. And so all of his SEAL Corps, which is made up of like 6 different guys, they all sort of came with him over to his independent contractor company, and they work for him and go on jobs, like whether it be security detail, whether it be, you know, like private ops, like trying to like find out intel and information. So it's all like that kind of secretive. So he does a lot of back and forth between New York and Virginia and DC because that's where his company, his military company is based. This Beholden and Beloved take place in New York. And I love it because the female heroine in here and her girlfriends are all from Jersey. And for those of you that know, I am originally from New Jersey, and all my Jersey girls I absolutely love. And they bring in just a huge dynamic of like attitude and like, you know, just spunk and just like don't mess with me type situation. So what happens in this, and I believe that the female character, her name is Catherine. So it starts off with Catherine. She's engaged and she is a couple weeks out from her wedding. She's planning all of, getting everything together. She is leaving her best friend. They were hanging out doing stuff. She's leaving the best friend and she is going to see the fiance. And fiance and she live together. And so she walks into the home, she hears this noise, she's like, what's going on? Make a long story short, she catches her fiance cheating on her. And not only is he cheating on her, he is sleeping with the chick, and the chick is one of her friends in her friend group, and she loses her mind. Kat just absolutely loses her mind over this situation. And she calls her best friend, and her best friend is gonna be significant later on in the series, and her best friend's name is Ashton. So she calls Ashton, and Ashton's like, girl, come back over here. So they basically put Kat back together. They help her to recover. And through that process, they basically say, hey, let's go out. We deserve a night on the town. So they decide to go out. And while she's out and about, she sees this guy, he's gorgeous. She wants to talk to him, but she's just not ready. She gets up to go to the bathroom and she trips. Or a guy knocks her over, he spills a drink on her, and when she trips, she literally falls in the lap of course, the hot guy. And the hot guy is like, hey. And so they have a brief conversation. She gets his name as Jackson, but she's just like, I'm not doing it, I'm not ready for it, whatever. And so she leaves and she doesn't think anymore about it. She works in advertising, and as she is going for a new job and a new contract, lo and behold, she gets to the advertising agency, or the company who is hiring the advertising agency that she works for, and who is the campaign holder but Jackson. And so the relationship sort of evolves from there. And I absolutely love it because this is a beautiful story of, heartache, love, loss. Jackson has a past, and Kat also has a past, and she doesn't trust. Every man that has ever existed in her life has done nothing but hurt her and cause her pain. And so she cannot let Jackson in. She just cannot. And it's filled with pain and despair and regret. And she thinks that Jackson is going to hurt her, even though he's bending over backwards to try to show her that he cares and that he wants to be with her, but he makes some grave mistakes along the way, and they're mistakes that Kat can't overcome, and she can't get past them. And so much of this duet is them trying to sort through it and work through it and figure it out, because she desperately falls in love with him. She absolutely wants to be with him, but he, because of who he is, can't let go of his past and his military history and his PTSD, and the push and pull and angst that exists in these books are just over the top, but they are so good. And I love their relationship so much, and the things that they have to work through in order to be together, and what he has to give up and what she has to give up, and the honesty that they have to confront both within themselves and each other is just gorgeous. So I'm going to say that this was an overall 5. I gave it a 4 angst, and I gave it a 4 for spice, and it is so good. It's so good. And I absolutely loved this next one. This is my favorite of the series, and this is Consolation and Conviction. And we are introduced to Natalie in this series over here, and something happens to Natalie, and I'm gonna say what can I say about this without spoiling, because I don't want to spoil it because I want you to go into it. Let me just say that Liam wasn't supposed to be her happy ever after. Liam is the heroine. He wasn't even on her radar. He wasn't even a thought in Natalie's life until he becomes an essential, integral part of her life because of some tragic set of circumstances that put their paths together. And it is so beautiful and so breathtaking. And it is a second chance romance, right? But it's also a military romance. It is also loss. It is also despair. There's a plot twist in here that is going to knock you off your socks. It's a military romance. There's so much that's packed into this, and their relationship could bring me to tears right now just talking about these two. It is so beautiful. And so this is couple goals right here. This is couple goals. I'm telling you, this is so good. And I give it a 5 across the board because it is just angsty. It is emotional. It's beautiful. It's spicy. It's everything and then some. And there's so much that goes into this in terms of, like I said, loss and grief and parental loss and, you know, getting a second chance, finding love, trusting, discovering. It's just everything. It packs a punch and it's so good. Please try this. Please try this. Okay, so then the next books, I did something crazy. I didn't actually buy the physical books, but I listened to the audiobooks and I had ebooks. So I'm trying to slow down on my reading. So, or not on my reading, what am I talking about? I'm never gonna slow down on my reading, but I'm trying to slow down on my book buying because my book buying is a little bit ridiculous. Okay, so then the next one is, I'll put it over here, and it's a standalone and it's Defenseless. And Defenseless is another character that we have seen multiple times in the two previous duets, and it's about Max and Max Dixon. And he meets, and I cannot remember the female heroine's name, but she comes up in the second duet, and she is a CIA operative, and because he's working on military defense contracts and he works for Jackson's company, then he and, gosh, I can't remember, her name is, I can't remember her name, but whatever her name is, her father has come up in the CIA. You know, he was in the CIA, she's in the CIA, the whole family is like military based. They have to go on a secret op mission. Some information comes up as to who is targeting Jackson's company, and so there's like whodunit type. It becomes like a little bit of a romantic suspense, but it definitely is, the categories that it falls under is enemies to lovers. It's definitely a workplace romance. You got military background and steamy love scenes. And again, you get to see cameos of all the other previous couples, and they're a very close-knit group of friends. And so it's outstanding, amazing, really good. I gave it a 4 overall and a 4 angst and a 4 spice. Then Evermore is I'll put it over here, and it is a novella, and it is one of the secondary characters, and her name is Gretchen, and Gretchen is part of the friend group, so she's friends with Ash, and she's friends with Kat, and so she's like Natalie, she's all friends with girls, and they've all come up together. Not Natalie, but Ash and Kat and Gretchen all grew up together. And one of the crushes that Gretchen had as a child was this kid named Benjamin. And it just so happens that Benjamin now is working in the military defense contract that Jackson owns. And so he is part of the guys, on the guy's side. And it's just a short novella about them finding each other and getting a second chance at love and a second chance after divorce and after heartbreak and heartache, and, you know, lying and cheating of partners and spouses. And so when they come together, they always knew that they had a spark and a flame, and it has a chance to rekindle, and so they are able to rekindle that. And so it was definitely fun. I gave it a 3 because it's a novella, so it wasn't really able to like flesh it out in the way that I wanted to see it fleshed out. And in terms of spice, again, I gave it a 2 because again, it's only like 90 pages, so it's super short, but it's just a cute story, and it basically kind of brings things together. And so for what it was good enough. So then next I want to talk about Indefinite. And Indefinite, I'll put it over here. It's a duet, and I hated this book. I hated this duet. Okay, so this is about Ash and Quinn. And Ash and Quinn have been sort of on and off since here. We've been hearing about them in the background. But Quinn, it's the classic Quinn making decisions for Ash, like, we can't be together because I don't deserve you. I'm not good enough. I don't want you to have a military wife's life. You know, I don't know if I'm going to come home. I don't know if I'm going to be safe. I don't want you waiting for me. So the constant push and pull and angst of their relationship. So he does a lot of fucked up things that pushes her away, and she hangs in there until she's just like sick and tired of it. And she's the type of chick that's like, I want to be married, I want a baby, I have a timeline, let's get on it, let's get to it. And she's willing to wait for him, but she gets to a point where she's like, I want a baby and I want to get together, I want to be married, and you're going to give that to me. And he's like, absolutely not, I'm not going to do that. And so that all sort of happens behind the scenes. And when we start with the Indefinite series, it's that, where she's like, you know what, it's come to a head. Either we're going to do this or we're not. And he's like, I'm sorry. And in the past, he would have said hurtful things to hurt her, to push her away, to make her go away. And this time he's like, I can't do it. I just am not what you want me to be. And they ultimately decide to end it. And the problem is that they don't end it. They have this push, pull, back, forth, get together, break up, get together, break up. And it's so toxic and so detrimental to their relationship that there's no way that this could ever be healthy. Now, Ashton drives me fucking insane. She is the type of character who is like, I'm gonna do what I want, and she's spoiled and impetuous and selfish and makes decisions. So she decides single-handedly that she is going to be artificially inseminated because she wants to have a baby and she's not gonna wait for Quinn. Cool. If that's what you wanna do, you do that. But she does it in a means to push Quinn away. She does it, she's like, well, if you really, because now he's coming back and groveling and trying to get back together with her, and really is like, you know, I've made a mistake. I now know that what I've done is wrong, because he had a serious accident while he was away, deployed, and now he's back, and he's like, you know what, that was like a come to Jesus moment. I need to get my shit together. And so she's like, you know what, if you really want to be with me, and then you're going to have to raise another man's baby, because I am going through it with artificial insemination. And that's her whole stick. And I'm just like, are you crazy? Do you really? But it would be different if she was choosing to do this. And there partly is a reason that she is choosing to do this, because that's what she wants to do. But then she expects him to stick around and raise another man's baby. And so, and then when he says, okay, fine, if that's what you want to do, I will be here for you. I will support you. And she tells him, I'm already pregnant. She's not, but she tells him she is. And, you know, he says, okay, I understand. I'm going to be there with you. And then even when he says, I'm going to be there with you, she's like, no, you're not. You're lying. You don't know what you think, and you don't know what you feel. And she just drives me crazy. And the book is a recapitulation, going over and over and over the same thing, saying the same thing. You don't know what you think. You don't love me. You don't want to be with me. You don't care about me. You hurt me. I don't want to be with you. Get away from me. You're mean. La la la. And it's the same thing over and over again, to the point where it's toxic, and she's so annoying. Like, I have never been so annoyed and so upset with a character, more so than I have been with Ashton in this book. And I probably should have DNF'd it, but I didn't. I finished it, and I hated it. And I never do this, and I give this book a 1 star. All because of her. She's just a horrible person. She's horrible to her friends. They try to talk sense into her. They're like, Quinn really loves you. He's made mistakes in the past, but he's really changed. And she is the problem. And so I gave it a 1 star. The audiobook narrator is really great. I think it was like Andy Arden and Sebastian York, I think, or like Andy Arden and one of the other guys that she like does narration with all the time. So really, really good. But Ashton drove me fucking nuts. I hated her. And so I gave it a 1 star, and I happily gave it a 1 star, because I was like, this was a piece of crap. This is not an example of a good relationship. This is an example of a toxic relationship. And she shows it as like suspense, happy ever after, military background, second chance, whatever. No, it was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I hated it. And so then the next book, and I did it to myself anyway. I went ahead and read the second one, Infinite, because I was like, I already bought the doggone audiobook and I refused to like let it go to waste. So I went ahead and read it. And by the time things sort of come to a culmination at the end, it ended in a satisfactory and everybody calmed down, but I was still so pissed off at her and disliked her so much that by the time she got to be a halfway healthy, decent human being, I was like, I never want to hear from you again. I never want to hear from you again. I never want to see you again. You're an awful, terrible person, and Quinn deserves better than you, even though he started off as a jackass in the beginning. Because like, if he's a jackass in the beginning and he doesn't act right and he doesn't treat you the way that you want, nix out. Be out. Don't be all back and forth. You got to like stand up for yourself and say, I'm done. I'm not going to put up with this bullshit. You can't decide what you want. I don't have time for it. I want to have a baby. I have a life plan. You don't want to do that? Cool. I'm going to go do me. And even if you go and do me means that I'm going to go and have an artificial insemination, have a baby on my own, and be a single parent, you do you. But don't let him come back. Don't let him come back. And seriously, and there were multiple times throughout where he said, you know, I'm going to pursue you. I'm not going away. I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove to you. I'm going to prove to you. But there are multiple times where he said, do you want me to leave? Because if you want me to leave and you truly don't want me around, I'll go. I'll go. But I don't think that's what you want. And her internal POV was like, well, I don't really want him to leave, but I can't let him do this. Blah, 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 blah. And she was just so indecisive and so impulsive and impetuous that it drove me freaking nuts. So by the time we got to the happy ever after, I was like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't like you. And I don't want you to have a happy ever after. Like, and that's terrible. And so I gave it a 1 star. So I gave both of them a 1 star because it was awful. I gave the performance and the narration a 5 because Andy Arden did a great job. She did. It was not her fault that the book was terrible. And the spice, I don't even care. I don't even care because it was just so terrible and bad. So that's how I felt about the last one. And I never want to read a book like that again with that type of toxic nonsense that's going on in relationships, because young girls don't need to think that that's how relationships go and that you have to be in constant drama and constant angst to show that you really are soulmates and that you're proven to be together and that you deserve to be one. What the hell? No, not at all. I did like at the end of this book, however, that we saw all the couples from all the Salvation series, all the duets, 10 years out, where they are, what they're doing, what's going on. They all sort of came together for, a celebratory event, and that was pretty cool, and I really enjoyed that. That was the best part of the Indefinite book. And so, having said that, like I said, I went from really loving Corinne Michaels' first couple of books to really hating that last book. So I am going to go into, I have her Hennington Brothers series, and I'm going to read those and see what I think about that, and hopefully it'll be better. So if you guys have read any of Corinne Michaels' books, please tell me what you think in the comments below. If you've read this Indefinite and Infinite series with Ashton and Quinn, tell me your thoughts on it. Tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. And